I'm going to be fairly quick today because a couple reasons. One, a lot of, and I'm going to go into a little bit about the strategic dialogue that we've had with not only the White House and Ms. Rosenblum and myself, but more importantly, the team members and the partners I have to my right and left. They are what's going to drive the modernization and also the overall pivot. And so I want to reserve as much time for both Colonel Grice and Mr. Colvin to go through their areas, because that's what you actually need to hear. Two, I want to try to preserve as much time as for questions and answers, because you don't need us talking to you the entire time, and that's the valued aspect of this engagement. What I do want to show, because we were talking about the future, is just basically touch on the past, just for a couple moments. The arc of where this program's been, and for many of you in the community, you've been along that ride for many, many years, if not all of it, and you probably know the history better than I. But 3 points I want to point out across here is we really are at the third pivot point. Each of the major decisions that were made back in 1993 for the establishment of our program, to 2003 with the revamping of this program, and to today, were predicated on a change in the threat and stuff. And we have to be take perspective of what we changed at the time, but also where we are today and why that's so important. And that's why I hearken back to Ms. Rosenblum. She is the Assistant Secretary of Defense, and as the Senior Advisor to the Secretary and Deputy Secretary, is unequivocal. And I think so is the Secretary and also the senior leadership within the department, that a fundamental threat pervades when it comes particularly from bio, but across the chemical and biological space combined. And that's why so much emphasis, and that's why we use words by pivot. Pivot in and of itself doesn't mean anything in particular. In fact, sometimes that can be just a loose jointed word to talk about the way in which we're going to ensure that we're responsible for taking care of the warfighter against threats as they emerge. But with that, plus added with that, what we heard from not only Dr. Hepburn, but also from Dr. Carter this morning, we see a construct in which there's almost a unilateral agreement that the threat that's prospective, both naturally occurring and also potentially with our near-peer competitors in a deliberate fashion, is one in which we here sitting up before you at the Chem Bio Defense Program will respond to. And that means that the community at large, we need your overall help to do so. As I think all of our speakers have iterated, not only our academic and industry partners, the entire S&T community at large is what's made this success and the successes we've had over the years. But let's be real clear. I mean, the threat profile we're heading into, we have to guard against lesser outcomes. This is not going to be easy in some of the ways in which we're talking about going around medical countermeasure development, how we're trying to integrate early warning into sensors and diagnostics and unknown pathogen identification, characterization, and early warning. So I want to be real clear that what we're going to do is pretty hard. So that first threat profile, if you'll remember, I'm just going to harken back to a couple of those threats real easily, but that came 30 years ago. And I want to also, I think it's notable that if just a couple of weeks ago was the 29th anniversary of the Chem Bio Defense Program, and that probably slid by us a little bit with a whimper, meaning not much of a fanfare or understanding of all the work that's ensued over the course of the last 30 years to provide capability to the warfighter. But what we do have to focus on is that this program, both institutionalized and normalized to address what we need, needs to be established and codified for the next 20 years of excellence in how we're going to protect both the homeland and also the warfighter at hand. Back in the first 30 years ago, the reason we actually had to set up the program and Congress did so was because the U.S. military was unprepared to deal with Saddam Hussein's chemical biological weapons during the first Gulf War. That constituted Saddam's 10,000 liters of botulism toxin that were loaded in munitions at the time. And we had a single source for antitoxin. I think most of you remember the retired racing horse first flight for the United States. We had to purchase Chem Bio Defense from our allies, like Germany, to fill in our gaps while in the Gulf. And we also had General Norman Schwarzkopf later admitted chemical and biological weapons was the one area in Iraq's military capability far exceeded our coalitions at the time. This shaped the way, and that's why Congress pulled in and codified not only a CB mission, but codified that within the Office of Science and Technology. The former place I come from. The Office of Science, Secretary of Defense. I don't know where Matt Hepburn is, and with that, that formalized. 10 years later, not only we had the second turning point, and that was predicated, obviously, off the 9/11 terrorist attacks, the 2001 anthrax attacks that showed the danger of how much a single rogue actor and stuff, and also drove in the 2006 QDR to quote, a small team of, or even single individuals can weaponize chemical, biological, and even crude radiological or nuclear devices to use them to murder hundreds of thousands of people. It also culminated in us entering into the second Gulf War, in which concern about giving WMDs to terrorist groups and stuff was of central concern. So with that, the more the interagency involvement is established in the National Security Council's published the 2002 National Strategy for Combating Weapons of Mass Destruction, and also the Department of Homeland Security's creation. DoD expanded its Homeland Security activities to include for Chem-Bio Defense, NORTHCOM, and the National Guard Civil Support Teams were created at the same time to deal with the COIN, the GWAD overall mission and stuff. And our acquisition and logistics published the new Chem-Bio Defense program's overall implementation plan. Each of these, as we went through these successive areas, were specific to a threat that the nation was facing at the time. And I don't need to reiterate what's been already said by our senior leaders here at the conference and our leaders at the administration level. But with China as the pacing challenge and a major power competition, we now again have to look. Plus the diversity and the bioconvergence we've talked about amply over the last couple of days means that the different branches of S&T and AI and nanotechnology and physics are converging in a way that diversifies our threat profile, but also confounds the way in which we have to apply our solution sets. So I say that with it, not to brief any further, but to say that I mean, if we continue to worship on the altar of determinism, and if we don't actually make the hard lessons to actually take down kind of the constructs and the business processes that we have now, and the approaches we have, and reevaluate and scrutinize every single one of them and the way we execute and deliver and listen to the warfighter, and that means the entirety of the S&T community and also the advanced development community, we're going to have a hard time meeting the goals that were laid out, first for the National Biodefense Strategy, but more importantly, what's expected of us under the National Defense Strategy. So I have unbelievable, particularly sitting through the panels over the last couple of days and knowing so many of you within the audience, I have absolutely no doubt that we will be able to rise to this challenge. But that means we have to be concerted. It means that we have to actually understand where we're going, and we have to ask questions when we don't know. These two gentlemen and their outstanding teams are the ones that are going to get us there. They're the ones that are going to have to work as a team, make sure they're transitioning, scrutinizing, and holding accountable some of those attributes I mentioned yesterday to make sure that our resources are delivering exactly what we need, because the threat's never been so complex. So I'm going to cease because, like I said, I really want to hear from these two, and then I definitely want to make sure that we have ample time for questions for you guys to scrutinize us. And I'm pretty sure we're allowed to like scratch the hard questions anyway, so for that. But, so with that, over to you, Colonel Grice.
Thank you, DSD Watson. So hey, first, I wanted to say I just call Carl sometimes so I can hear his voice. Carl, thank you for doing a great job as leading all of these efforts this week and all the planning you put into to get everybody here. I mean, I'm looking out. There's a ton of people in the audience, so big thank you. And then what I really wanted to talk about is how important each and every one of you are out there in the audience. And as a chemical officer for 28 years, in the military for going on 33, thank you. I have seen the improvement of equipment over that time, significant improvement. And I think every military member in the audience would agree that we've come a long way. And that really is due to you. It's due to academia, it's due to industry, it's due to our national labs. And I cannot thank you enough for what you do for our nation. You make us the greatest military in the world, without a doubt. The other thing, I'm new as the JSTO director, but I've been around the program for about 10 years, whether it was in policy or on the G8 or as the Army EA. And what I'm really excited about is the fact that you have the three of us sitting up here today. You know, there's a need to be very clear to industry, academia, the national labs on what we want. And so DSD Watson has provided that leadership and made us a team. so that as we go from advanced development, or excuse me, as we go from S&T to advanced development, that there's really a partnership here. And guidance from OSD, and even more importantly, advocacy. They're defending our budget. They're defending the budget that allows you to do the good work that you're doing. So the teamwork part, I hope you take away from this, that we're all sitting up here together and hopefully giving you the same message so that you can plan your investments and your time because we have a common message of what we're trying to get after. Because at the end of the day, the goal is to get equipment to the warfighter. And the only way we'll do that is if we're giving you that common message, securing the funding, because that really matters and that's really challenging at times, and then pushing it through to get a requirement. So I was really excited to hear the Commandant talk yesterday, because he's a key part of that, and taking ownership of .mil PF and driving requirements and all the services, helping us get those requirements right, because when you go to the Hill to defend the budget, you have to show it's really needed. So thank you to all of you for that. And then I just want to talk about 3 quick things about the Joint Science and Technology Office. And really, that's what are our priorities, what are the concepts that I'm trying to bring in as the new director, and then how can you help? So first, and you've probably seen this, most of you have seen a lot of our products, integrated early warning. But what is that? Well, that's making sure everything works together. Sensing, to communicating that, to getting it to a format that a commander can make a decision. That's integrated early warning. Integrated layered defense. Having the sensors, being able to, again, communicate that, being able to do decon, being able to do resupply, all those things, integrated layered defense, and the whole medical countermeasures piece, incredibly important. And then finally, and this is really key, and it links to what DSD Watson was talking about, preparing for surprise. So, we have a thinking enemy, and I wrote this in our S&T plan. We have a thinking enemy that watched what happened when the world halted due to COVID. They watched, and they know the impact. So I'm asking you, help us think about how do we prepare for the next bad thing? Hopefully somebody's not going to do that to us, but we need to be prepared. So that's where you come in to continue to protect the nation. And then the concepts. So really 3 buckets, 3 bins, however you want to think about it, is what I've been thinking a lot about. And so, again, that preparing for surprise piece is the first bin. And so we do something called threat agent science. And Dr. Norwood's right over here. He leads that for me. I think Giselle Roman Hernandez is out here, maybe Sarah Peacock. Yeah. They are absolutely on the leading edge of identifying the threat potential before it's a threat. That's exciting stuff. And then what that does is it allows us to move into that next bin, and that's making space to do work, to do research, to provide you the funds to do those things for us. And then the last bit, and I think this is really important, and again, I'll harken back to the fact that the 3 of us are sitting here, it's reducing the risk at my level in the S&T realm so that when I hand it off to Mr. Colvin and his team, they can bring it to production. So that's really key. And then the glue that holds that together is getting a good requirement. So those are the concepts, those are the 3 big bins that I'm really focused on as the JSTO director. And then how can you help? Well, 1, you're here, so that's awesome, thank you. 2, I've been talking to a lot of people about standards. And so I think the government can help you if we can come to common standards for some of the things we're asking you to produce. That can be data standards, putting in the right format, putting it in a repository, especially when we talk about trying to get FDA approval if it's a medical countermeasure we're trying to actually use on a person. There's lots of opportunity there that a lot of you out in the audience are helping us with that really gets after how to compress the timeline to get medical countermeasures to the field. That's been a big focus that DSD Watson's been pushing us for. So that's one area. If you can help me understand what standards would be helpful, and then there's always a flip side, right? So if we're too demanding or restrictive on standards, that could have the opposite effect, because we definitely don't want to squash anybody's innovation. New ideas. So I walked around last night, I hope a lot of you did. There's a lot of really good ideas out there. And really, then what we have to do, because it's somewhat unique, we have to share those ideas with our warfighters. They know what they want, they know what they need. We had the warfighter panel yesterday. You heard a lot of them talk about what they need, but they don't know what science is out there. And I think that resonated with some of those comments. So taking the capability that you are developing or the idea that you have, getting it in warfighters' hands so they can touch it, feel it, play with it, give feedback to industry is really important. And so I appreciate your participation in the SBOAs, the ATDs, all those things where you get to interact with service members and give you feedback, again, with the intent of trying to get that capability back to the warfighter. Help us understand that realm of the possible, really, is what I'm talking about. Then transparency on both sides. So there's a profit motive. You know, industry wants to get to development, to acquisition, to produce that product, and potentially have applications outside the military. And we just need to be clear that, you know, that is a driving factor sometimes. Although I know most of you in the audience are here because you really want to help. But it is, you know, there is a profit motive, and we all have to understand that and try to help each other get to that point where we can produce products. That helps all of us. Building partnerships. Again, I hope you're looking to your left and right, not just here to see us, but also partnering with each other. Because lots of folks have good ideas, and those good ideas, I've seen it, they can be augmented by other ideas and integrated into the concepts for the future service plans. And then last, and we could talk more about other things, but really thinking, what is in the realm of the possible? And really pushing the envelope to do something new. You know, I stopped at a booth that's doing the metal organic frameworks. You know, and you heard us talk a lot about decon. You know, but decon is always the same thing. It's always decon. Is there a leap? Is there a movement to something different? You know, and in the discussion I had with that team, you know, maybe there's an option there where you jump over decon. The equipment, the material, the fabric decons itself. That's a transformational idea. So that's the kind of stuff that I hope you're thinking about while you're here today. And again, I just can't thank you enough for participating in the conference. Thanks.
Well, you got claps. Over to you.
Thank you. All right. Hey, it is a great day to be here at the Chem Biodefense Science and Technology Conference. My name is Darryl Colvin. I am the Joint Program Executive Officer for Chemical, Biological, Radiological, and Nuclear Defense. You just see how that rolls, okay? I mean, we live that every day within our formation. And in our job, we are the advanced development arm for the Chem Biodefense program. We're a supporting element to DASD Watson within the Chem Biodefense mission space and to the Army within the radiation and nuclear mission space. So when you think about our mission, okay, the mission across the JPEO with 92 programs that we manage is to deliver integrated, layered CBRN defense capabilities across joint, all domain operations. And I key in on the word operations because it goes back to what the combatant commands require and to execute operations within their areas of responsibility. So if you think of what we do within the chemical, biological, radiological, and nuclear mission space, it is a denied environment when you think about it. The threat, as stated, and you've heard the threat multiple times today, is all about a denied environment that extends from the tactical edge where we may at some point engage with our adversaries, all the way back to the continental United States, the homeland, where we live here today. Believe it or not, you are part of how we project power to those joint forces on the ground that execute those missions for the combatant commands and for the United States. Our goal at the end of the day is to deny our adversaries any, and I say any, advantage to deploying CBRN weapons. Okay? That is a goal that we all need to get our arms around, because by doing so, okay, we're providing our adversaries a dilemma that they have to overcome, and our goal is to make that a reality. And secondly, to rapidly provide commanders the decision space to continue operations, and more importantly, the time required to evacuate potentially affected personnel to higher levels of care. Our job is to save lives. Protecting the force is all about resilience. You heard that from DASD Watson. Okay? Innovating, and I'll use a word that Colonel Grice used, integrating with a disruptive purpose, because that's what innovation is all about. It is disruptive. So think about that as you attack these capabilities, these technologies that we can bring into the force. It is a disruptive capability. Allowing our joint forces to withstand, fight through, recover, survive, and win. You heard that from DASD Watson. And when you think about it, I'll use a term that our Chief of Staff of the Army uses, which is winning matters. Okay? And it does. In this mission space, it is all about winning matters. That is why what you see up at the table today is one chemical biological defense program team. Okay? We meet on a regular basis. There's a fourth element. There's the DASD Chem Biodefense Program. There's the Joint Requirements Office. There's the JSTO, the JPEO. Okay, we are the supporting element. We support our joint services, the combatant commands, our allies, and our international partners. Reinforcing DASD Watson's priorities for Chem Biodefense Program capabilities. Okay, think about it. They're scalable, agile, and maneuverable. They're cost effective. They consider shelf life. As we build these capabilities, they need to withstand the sense of time. Okay? They are multifaceted solutions. They're not unique, nor are they exquisite. They're interoperable, and they integrate easily within our U.S. And combined joint all-domain operations, as well as with our international partners. And they are grounded in logistics and supply chain risk management. We need to keep that in our forefront, because as we develop these technologies, okay, they come with intellectual property. We love to get them out there into publications and let everybody know what we're doing, but we need to really think hard about, for those critical technologies and capabilities, how do we protect them? Okay, so we always maintain capability above that of what our adversaries can put on the ground. These priorities enable a culture, and I want to say that, a culture of resilience through that innovation, that disruptive innovation with a purpose. That includes speed, flexibility, and adaptability. Viable, scalable products delivering incremental capabilities that are technology-driven in time. We talked about incremental capabilities a number of times over the last couple of days, but when you think about it and define it, incremental capabilities are really, they're driven by technology and time. It's all about physics, okay? So I'll give you an example. So as we develop through advanced development a capability, and I'll just be generic, and we meet 8 of 10 requirements for that capability. In the past, we look at those 2 capabilities and say, well, geez, if you don't give us all 10, we don't want it, okay? The pivot now is really helping us that says those 8 of 10 capabilities that we do meet, okay, provide the warfighter significant capability. Those remaining 2, okay, will either continue in advanced development, but more likely, because of the technology, I pass that back to my partner, Colonel Grice, and the JSTO to say, I need you to continue the S&T so we can build upon that capability in time. So it's as the pivot drives the incremental piece, we get that capability out there, but we continue the science and technology in order to drive that final capability that we signed up to provide the joint warfighter. Okay, So how's this process start? We talked a lot about that a little bit in different forums, but not all together. So when you think about how you fit into that entire process, being here today is one of the ways we do it, but it's really understanding what are the threats. And you've heard a lot about that this week with respect to naturally occurring, accidental, or deliberate. These threats have a time element associated with them that drive gaps and risks, okay, in our ability to really conduct large-scale operations. And I think you heard that from the Commandant yesterday, okay? So Colonel Promoter Crockett talked to you about, okay, that large-scale operations with our near-peer adversaries, and how are we able to respond in time? These threats with a time element are really a challenge when it comes to joint force readiness, our preparedness. And we think about risk to the force, okay, and risk to the mission. We start with understanding the problem. What is the problem we're trying to solve? We translate those into requirements initially that we can all get our arms around and say, okay, let's think about what do those requirements mean as we kick off the science and technology efforts to help define those, to shape those, to really find a solution. And I really enjoyed Astronaut Ruben's discussion this morning because as you find that solution, really what we're asking the participants in the room to help us with is let's set our processes aside, okay? Find the solution that aren't biased by our own processes, okay? Let's think like Gumby. Let's think with a flexible construct. Let's do the critical thinking that gets us to a solution that the S&T, through early warfighter engagements, and you heard Colonel Grice talk about that a number of times. Engagements of the warfighters early is how we start this process. This is how we inform what technologies we need to provide in order to get to the capability sets that the warfighter requires. So through those early warfighter engagements, and then iterating through it, some of you have participated in the SABOAs today, through iterating through advanced technology developments over time, demonstrators, that really gets us in to the point where we can say, you know what, let's get these into the hands of the warfighter, those early warfighter engagements. So they're there from the very onset all the way through those advanced technology demonstrators. And we've finally gotten to the point where the warfighters say, we have operational relevance. This will provide us operational capability. Okay, so when we think about that, we say, all right, good. We have operational relevance, and it provides a capability that we need. We transition that into the advanced development side within our mission space. Okay, as the advanced developer, we finish the design, the development, the integration, the testing, and the fielding to the warfighter. It's kind of interesting. You listened to the warfighter panel yesterday. So those capabilities that we deliver, okay, we're always bouncing that against the warfighter through soldier touch points, through these warfighter excursions and advanced technology demonstrations, because you heard them yesterday. Okay, some of the things that we're being asked to provide, some of the threats we're being asked to overcome are pretty complex, and they're technology challenged. But you had to listen very carefully to what's driving the technology challenges. Okay, because our warfighters, okay, what was the first thing they said yesterday in the panel? It has to work. It needs to work when I need it, every time. It needs to be small, okay? It needs to be lightweight, software upgradable. You heard Colonel Grice talk about in the S&T base what they're doing in that mission space with integrated early warning and the agile capabilities. Okay, we're doing the same, we're basically feeding off of one another in order to advance that as we move down the path toward the CBRN support to C2, which gets to the next part that says we want this to exist we want this to operate on our existing networks. Okay, it needs to be integrated, not only within that formation that is on the battlefield, but it needs to be integrated across the services. It needs to be rugged, Remember, you heard that yesterday. Throw it in a rucksack, throw it in the back of the truck. When I pull it out, I want to turn it on. It's got to be calibrated, ready to go, okay, for the advanced technologies we're asking it to perform. It needs to be survivable. It needs to be powered by batteries that they already have. It needs to communicate on networks that already exist, okay? And then there were the easies. It needs to be easy to use, easy to train, easy to repair, okay? And it has to have broad application, okay? Yesterday, when you listen to that warfighter panel, what they're asking this community to provide, the folks up here at the table as well, okay? They're asking us to give them something that's not unique, that's not exquisite, that hits those easy buttons that I just described. So as we think about what's next, when we get into the priorities for the Chem Biodefense program, I operate in 3 areas within the DASD's mission space: modernizing the biological defense, integration of integrated early warning, and unencumbering the warfighter. Our advanced technology development priorities, we've identified a number of technology initiatives that this community here can help us with, and that we've communicated with Colonel Grice, and you heard a number of them over the last couple days, to include detection, not only biological, but chemical, okay? Combine those two, it would be, you think about unencumbering the warfighter. If we can get to detection systems that do biological and chemical, okay, within the same configurations, size, weight, and power, wow, that's a huge step to unencumbering the warfighter. How we collect samples. If you look at the systems that are in advanced development today, systems that used to be the size of this table, okay, we're basically packaging them in a much smaller size, weight, and power configuration. That puts some interesting challenges on things like pumps that collect an air sample, okay? And within that air sample, which is now very small, you're trying to collect a sample that basically characterizes this entire room. What a challenge, if you think through that. Identification of what those threats are, because as we talk through the last couple days, we're trying to find rapid solutions to unknown threats, okay? So basically, we already have one arm behind our back. What we're saying is, hey, we want to identify that, okay? We don't really have a good starting point to say what that is, but what you heard over the last couple days, especially what's in the S&T base, informing advanced development, there are a number of initiatives that help us go from to drive solutions using AI and machine learning to help us identify an unknown threat rapidly and communicate that to the warfighter. They wanted protection material for a technology driver is protective materials and solutions. You heard some of that yesterday in some of the director discussions. Okay, our materials that our protective suits are getting much thinner. Okay, they're actually a uniform. Okay, think about our exposed hands and face. What are the materials that we want to use to protect the warfighter that are different and novel, okay, and are a leap ahead from what we typically use today, which is a rubber type system, okay? They're looking for broad spectrum medical countermeasures that are manufacturable, okay? I have no doubt we can come up with medical countermeasures, but if we can't manufacture them, okay, so now we need to think about manufacturing and the whole man-print concept. Autonomy is big. Talking to Colonel Promotable Crockett, okay, think of autonomous systems, not only in the air, but on the ground that support our maneuver forces, okay, but also support our dismounted soldiers that may have you saw it yesterday, it was called a MUT, okay? The ability of a system that would tag along with a squad that's out doing a reconnaissance effort that can now project that system out and keep the soldier out of harm's way. And then finally, think about the human-machine teaming. So we're working very closely with the DASD and the JSTO to really define a medical architecture and a framework that will help provide those rapid solutions to the unknown threats. So we need your help, industry that's here today, academia, the government labs, and our international partners that are here as well, to help answer Colonel Grice's lead-in question, if you remember back from his first kickoff, okay? And I thought it was an excellent question to ask, okay? But his lead-in question was basically stated, is simply better or good enough? How will you respond? Thank you for your time today.
I think Carl's tired. I'm going to moderate this for you, Carl. No, I'm kidding. Sit down. That's what we agreed to. That's fine. So first of all, you have to you have 3 leaders up here talking in unison across this. I think the most successful thing is we actually preserved amongst us 20 minutes for questions and answers, which is unheard of. And so with that, we're going to open them up. We obviously get those on here, and we'll kind of just triage these as they come in. So you guys see them on the back, so I won't read them, but we can see who.
Nope, they're not.
They're not?
I don't think we're there yet.
Okay, then I will read them for the group, and we'll.
Oh, there we go.
This is what happens when you let us moderate ourselves. But okay, can you expand on your vision of biosurveillance, especially given the fact that there are no clear requirements for chem biodefense biosurveillance articulated by the services? Yeah. So over to you. No, that's I'll take it. So what's really important is, so for the Department of Defense, the department signed out its DODD, its directive that put PNR, for our Undersecretary for Personnel and Readiness, squarely as the responsible party for biosurveillance within the Department of Defense. That means that we coordinate with them, both from a chemical and biological defense perspective, but others across the department, their head. As Ms. Rosenblum talked about with the biodefense posture review, part of that posture review is to look at the roles and responsibilities inclusive of biosurveillance and how that's going to be integrated, because there are so many layers, both where that's deployed. That's sensors, diagnostics, to wastewater surveillance, to how we actually do our GEIS mission overseas and our overseas laboratories, to how we integrate. For us, as we talked about, that we have pieces throughout our programs, both integrated early warning, those sensors, the diagnostics, those aspects to it. So as we define and we try to pull together what integrated early warning, that has to assemble into the overall department's component of what biosurveillance actually is and how it's going to be invested in. What I can tell you from our perspective and stuff is that we have to be, for biosurveillance, has a lot of definitions. I was up in the White House when we wrote the original biosurveillance strategy some decade ago and stuff, but the point being is that it can't be reliant on data streams of convenience. It's easy to look at things that are in data that's coming into you, but biosurveillance and more importantly, decision-making for leadership and how we actually integrate early requires the fusion of multiple feeds, the way we look at that, and we have to be determinant as to what type of data and how we need that to actually make decisions at the right time and right space. It's not about the injects of endless amounts of, again, if we just take all medical health records from DHA, or we just have sensors out there collecting in, those by themselves, they're conductors of information. They're not giving value to it. So really biosurveillance, as we put together not only the doctrinal, well, we don't do the doctrinal, that would be others, but as we look to make sure that the systems that are integrating in there across the scheme, we have to make sure that we're contributory to how those are actually delivering benefit, and they're scaled and actually formed in a way. And I think the department's working on that through the biosurveillance leadership of PNR, with the advocacy of ANS and also the Chem Biodefense program as a primary partner and stuff. It's hard to answer that because it's also in development under the BPR, the roles and responsibilities and and also how that ties to the National Biodefense Strategy and our contributions to that overall. Anything?
I guess I'd just add to that, and it goes into that need to inform the realm of the possible. Mm-hmm. So today, I think there was a breakout session where you were talking about breath analysis. So, you know, the sailors on the boat that got docked due to COVID, I bet that commander would have wanted to know that maybe he could have somebody just have their breath tested and know if they were exposed to an agent that would take that ship out of commission, right? But we didn't know that at that time. Mm-hmm. So that's where we really need to get those realm of the possible capabilities in front of warfighters, and then develop that requirement. Because while we have a lot of smart people, we need scientists, we need industry, we need academia to show us that you could do that. And I'm sure that's one of many things that probably were discussed today that there may not be a requirement for, but oh boy, a commander sure would want it. And we've got to tell them about it and then work. Really, there's a fourth person who should be here with us, and that is the JRO, who works our requirements. And really linking them in to make sure that we're bringing that into the ICTs that probably many of you in the audience participate in, so that we can identify that, build that requirement. I can do stuff in the S&T space without that requirement. Yeah. So it's really good that we're having those discussions here. The next place we need to go now is go back into those ICTs and get that requirement written so I can hand the ball off to Mr. Colvin and he can score a touchdown for us.
And the only thing I'd add to that too, we're not absent requirements either. Like I said, biosurveillance is a construct by which we're actually going to supersede and organize around within the department, but also as the nation. The integrated early warning, the constructs, the science and technology, the things that we worked on across sensors, diagnostics, the way we actually give early indicators and warnings to commanders to make and pull out the decision space, CSC2, we have around there the organizing structure of how the overall department wants to frame biosurveillance and where they need to invest in additional places is the part that's still coming. So I look at it more of a strategic. We're not going to put out probably specific biosurveillance requirements, right, for the joint warfighter. What we are is contributors to the overall department's ability to do that. And so I think we have much, although we have to update requirements, as Mr. Colvin said, for the Chem Biodefense, and we are contributors and will participate as biosurveillance construct.
Good answer.
Next question. Oh, this is all you.
Yeah.
Can,
You even have somebody in the audience that could help with that one.
yeah.
Where'd you go?
Yeah, so
Colvin, you'll take?
Yeah, so there are a lot of solutions out there with respect to wearables, okay? And I think the Department of Defense recognized that, and at the Office of the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment challenged this community, okay, with a pilot program that we are all executing across the services, okay? So the intent is, rather than each of the services running with their own solutions and their own requirements, and now we have multiple configurations. You can see I'm wearing my wearables here today, okay? My wearables always tell me I don't get enough sleep. You know, what it's, the whole intent is we're pulling together a pilot. It's already up and running. Dave Rustione is here today. Josh Israel is here today. They're both very intimately involved with that pilot program that has multiple working groups, okay? They get at the requirements, get at the algorithms. What are the things that the services want these systems to do? And then as we progress, our job is to, from the pilot program, working with the S&T community, go back to the Undersecretary of Defense for Acquisition and Sustainment, and really communicate what's in the art of possible, okay? And, you know, I remember I talked about that as we walk through it. So you think, what's the operational value of that, okay? And from that, okay, the intent is the Secretary will come back to us and with that decision that says, I want you to proceed forward with these requirements. They'll define a service lead and basically an Office of Primary Responsibility to execute as the executive agent on behalf of the community. Now, the configurations may be slightly different. However, the algorithms that run on them will have a baseline configuration that now brings in the unique capabilities that each of the services and our allies and international partners may require. So right now we haven't committed to a path, and that's the beauty of it. So if you're looking for what's the configuration, what's the answer, what's the algorithm, the briefings, some of the sessions that you saw that occurred here today or over the last couple days, was all about what's in the art of possible, and from those we'll bring together a program that is overseen by an executive agent, an office of primary responsibility, that will drive that capability for each of the customer base. I hope that answers your question. Oh, is the focus on biological only, or as chemical? I'm not sure what insults are, but
No.
it's wide open. Okay, so we're asking from a requirements perspective, what are those things that you want us to measure? Okay, whether it's biochemical, you know, I mean, Rad Nuke's not even out of the running on that either. So we're thinking big. We're not making any decisions or commitments. As soon as we start making decisions in this space, we start limiting our options. So more to follow as we move through the pilot. In fact, I think a good update will come at the S&T conference for next year.
Yeah, I'll turn it over to you guys. Yeah, the only thing is, so calling it, to Mr. Colvin's, and which is not much, he's pretty much covered the gamut. It's important because when we did prep program and the wearables he's wearing, I should wear if I would have remembered to charge him and bring him on my trip with me, which is bad, which means I have to re-baseline all my stuff now for that. But coming out of the Joint Science and Technology Office, that's where it came from, right? And so that's critical. And also, let's be real clear, like for the department, there were 55, 56 different wearables programs, and that's why I went up to the 4-star level to consecrate a pilot across the department, because they understood the inefficiency and how that both on the standardization of hardware and the systems architecture. Meaning the Chem Biodefense program was asked to help run that. Now we do that with all of our partners in the services and DHA, but it was the Chem Biodefense program that haunted that, seeing the issue at hand and how we get to that. So. But it's important to know where the insult to injury on biological and chemical insults, we're looking for physiological indicators, biomarker-related things that are after, and that's why Mr. Colvin's, he's enrolled. We're going through the data. We're trying to get that out. It's been put out to soldiers. The entire PACOM leadership reads it because they're looking at it for different things. So I'm going to turn it just for a second because JSTO and others, as we look, it may not be such a question where you necessarily need to ask whether it's biological or chemical only. I think that it'll be able to discern a whole much more than that as we learn what the data feeds to us. But I think S&T, that would be a good.
Yeah, thank you, sir. So Dr. John Hannon's over here. He may talk to somebody. He briefed the ASD on it. But what I wanted to highlight is that, so we're gathering data with these wearables. And so the next step, and I believe I just authorized some basic research into this, is now taking that data and trying to turn it into information. So what have we learned by all those baselines, and then combining that to when people got sick or when they had injuries, regardless of bio or chem, when did they have an event happen that we could have predicted? Yep. So I've talked a lot about data. That is why that's so important, is so that we've got to get all those baselines from a very broad community of people, understand what their baseline is, to then actually use that data to be predictive. That's all I wanted to add. Thanks.
Yeah. And then
okay, John? All right.
Then you make stuff up, and then you see if John's face, right? Like, so I want to do that specifically, but honestly, it's just the sensor data as far as the sensors can actually take us within the wearables and the collection of those baselines to help inform. I'm going to make something up, John, for you. But the point is, I mean, if we're going to have to be in right now, if we're going to slap wearables on that are invasive for acetylcholinesterase detection within the blood systems, if we can get to points whereby physiologically, not only the sensors, but also if in perspiration, I'm just literally making that up, John. So like, say yes, and then, but the point being, as the different ways we may have potentials to go after different parts of the bio and chemical related things off of these gives a lot of potential, and that's why it's important. Is that just somewhat nodded? There we go, good. All right, next question. It's you two, specifically.
So mine is, one, my division chiefs are over here. So I highlighted Dr. Norwood, the rest of the team's here as well. So if you haven't introduced yourself to them, that's the power of JSTO and the science and technology managers and the contractors that work under them. And a lot of them are out in the audience here, and you've probably seen them present. But one really neat thing we do that was established well before I got here was TechWatch. So Dr. Khan brings in different technologies, and this is a favorite part of my day when I get to dial in to listen to some of the TechWatch things that come in, because some people have some really great ideas and they're looking for a home for them. And so we're happy to evaluate that, have the division chiefs and the STEMs participate. Benefit of COVID, benefit of all the technology that we've introduced is that we can do that virtually, so you don't even have to come to DTRA to present. They're presenting online. So great opportunity. If you're interested in that, come see me, come see one of the directors, and we can tell you how to get involved.
Yeah, so from the JPEO side, and I think we went full operational capability with really a system that we call JET. It's the Joint Enterprise Technology Tool. If you visited our booth downstairs, you can got one of those packets or picked up one of our cards, you'll see the QR code on the back. Scan that, that'll take you to our website. And on the JET, when you enter the JET tool, it'll ask you a few questions because it wants to know who you are and what you're interested in, okay? Or if you have a specific question. And the way the JET tool is set up is that goes out to, within our JPO, to our joint program managers, which we have 4, our joint project leads, which we have 2, and it also goes to our futures directorate and chief engineer, okay? And they review that almost daily, okay? And they will assign a subject matter expert to reach out to that industry partner. It's our way to open the dialogue, that collaboration. And as we collect information that comes in, we may find that it is specifically within the advanced development, or if it's more aligned with science and technology, okay, we point them to the JSTO, okay? Because that's really important, okay? It's important that we keep the science and technology within the JSTO lanes, okay? And as we mature those technologies, we transition those over to advanced development for maturation into the hands of the warfighter. Okay, so if you find that, get that code or go to our website, just look up on the application that's there, J as in Juliet, Echo, Tango, Tango. Okay, that's the Joint Enterprise Technology Tool, and once you get on, it's pretty user-friendly.
And just from my perspective, so I'm only going to speak because I have so many of friends in the audience and industry friends in here, and so like from the OSD office as the oversight management office, many of you know I will talk strategically, but when it comes to actually presenting your products, your visions and stuff like that, what you'll know is I don't put myself in the middle of those, meaning I am the least common denominator in being able to do that. I mean, so you'll see our partnership. I give my card, which directs directly to these 2 individuals and their folks, right? Because it's unfair for me to also try to run through and go through the tech-related areas. I am highly interested, and I think those that have worked with me know that, but it's also counterproductive because of the types of follow-up. So I direct to the websites immediately, and it's also inclusive of, I include BARDA TechWatch in here because they're an important partner as well. So I think we can do another question. Final audience question. Ooh, good question.
While you're thinking about it,
go for it.
I'd say everything old is new again.
Yeah.
My previous job was on the Army G8, and weekly we were providing support to the Ukraine. And so the interesting thing was what type of support they were requesting and we were providing. And a lot of it were more common technologies, Stinger missiles, Javelin missiles, those kind of things. Which we had assumed some risk in. And now, obviously, we've I think, gotten in front of that risk as an Army. But it just exposed all these other ideas, too. UAVs, we're at threat anywhere on the battlefield. And really, again, I'm Army, so I'll talk some Army, but I think it applies to the joint side as well. The new operating environment, we're at risk here. Potentially. So there is no sanctuary. And so that really is going to change, I think, how we operate on the future battlefield. There's no, the first slide we showed you was Desert Storm. We're not going to have the time to build forward. So it really changes a lot of paradigms, I think, that we've gotten used to. The other piece, and I think it's an exciting piece, is the ability to have forward deployed equipment and then bring forces to the equipment. I think that worked well for us in many ways. The idea that you could do that is deploy quickly and not have to move all the equipment along with it. That's a lot of effort. So I think there are a lot of lessons learned coming out of that. And really, it just continues to emphasize the point Des D. Watson started with, that we have to pivot and be ready for surprise.
Yeah. So one thing I'd like to just throw in on this. So you've heard some discussion about the acquisition side and the contracting side. I'm going to spin the question a different way. One of the lessons learned from COVID that we have applied across, if you think about the last 2 years, and what we have accomplished in the pandemic response. Okay, that was all done through the Department of Defense. Okay, setting up a joint assisted acquisition cell that worked for the Joint Rapid Acquisition Cell in the Pentagon, the same Joint Rapid Acquisition Cell that is now helping with the response to the Ukraine. Those lessons applied in our ability to come together as a team, work through the authorities, and get through rapid contracting is paying off dividends within our ability to respond to the Ukraine effort. Okay, so one of the salient lessons learned is really a lesson applied from this mission space, and our ability to respond quickly to contracts is now being applied to the greater response with the various weapon systems. So when it comes to working with this group here, okay, same things apply. We know how to work contracts rapidly, and that all was born out of the authorities and understanding the lines of communications and how to get contracts rapidly. So look forward to working with each of you.
And I'll give an answer because I control going out for that. So I'm always going to be amongst the three of us team brothers here, the glass half empty and poison kind of person. So I'll answer those with two kind of salient lessons I've taken from it, though there are a multitude. One, a little bit different, and not disagreeing with Mr. Colvin at all. When Ukraine kicked off and the calls went out for what can we do in anticipation of potential use in those areas, and that's not just in the Javelins areas, when it came like whether there would or would not be chemical or biological defense in those requests, our companies, and we look at the capacity and the ability to spin up and surge, like I talked about the other day, the ability to surge on things like rocks or other types of auto-injectors, if there's a niche, it became very apparent we could not, or not in the time frame, or in the numbers that may be necessary to assist an ally, or if there was an escalation that happened to happen from here or to go onward. It comes back to our ability when we're building out good capability that the warfighter actually need, that our allies need. We can access it, and we can deliver it, and we can surge up on it, or we can DPA the heck out of it if we need to. We have to maintain that. And so from Ukraine, I watch very carefully, and you see this on the Javelin, because Ms. Rosenblum works it all the time, on the Javelin side, across the things, our munitions spinning down. We have to be able to get access to we are now back into near peer competitors with large scale understanding what we need for the total force. And that's why I'm trying to reinforce those attributes. The second, and I apologize, as an old reformed IR person, it was a good exemplar of what we used to call the instability-stability paradox. And we often see this, and that meaning that back to the near-peer competition where both sides have nuclear weapons and they have the scalability to use down to the tactical level. I think what we've seen in Ukraine, not only in the talking of red flags and through there, is meaning across the continuum of conflict, ever since you introduced the possible use of tactical nuclear weapons, cyber, a very dynamic battle space in which the tools of which could be used at any level for chemical and bio. We've gone back and forth as a leadership, as planners, as the overall defense on whether it would, should, is there a conflict? Are they going to hit the nuclear, particularly nuclear power plants? Meaning the stability that's created for the conflicts and the possibility of chem-bio actually increase as a result of nuclear powers coming into such close proximity with one or each other. As such, we have to be prepared as we're engaging with other near-peer competitors for what that might portend. And that means that the diversity of the threat, both the tool set available to our adversaries now, can be used up and down that range to smallest all the way to largest. That instability offers opportunity for our adversaries. And so as we've talked about trying to buy that down, that's an area that I think we need to be cognizant of. But I was a former IR person. Okay, with that, I think we are extremely appreciative of the number of you that actually came to the session. It is very robust and stuff, because I know it's on day 2. And 2, the questions that you gave us and also giving us your time for, if we are always available and really, really appreciate not only this audience, but the community writ large for how we're engaging around these threat profiles. So with that, thank you very much.
Cool, thank you.